Okay, good morning, everyone. And I would like to welcome you and call to order our Lucan Biddulph Council meeting for Tuesday, October the 5th. Well, it is the first full week of October. And in case you didn't know it, October is Breast Cancer Awareness Month. We have all embraced the return to normality, return to dinners out, return to sporting events, return to concerts, and return to healthcare visits. Our healthcare system has certainly taken a hit because of the strains that this pandemic has put on it. But that does not negate our responsibility to look after ourselves. And that means for women, it means paying attention to our breast health. That means self-exams and making an appointment for your mammogram. You may have to wait for that appointment, but make that appointment. My mother-in-law was a breast cancer survivor, and she was diagnosed in her late 70s. And because of early detection, yes, even at that age, there can be early detection, her treatment went very well. Early detection is the key to a successful treatment plan for breast cancer. And while breast cancer in men is extremely rare, only 1% of diagnosed breast cancers occur in men, it is something to pay attention to. The mortality rate for men who have breast cancer is high. 22% of men that have breast cancer will die from breast cancer. So familiarize yourself with the signs and symptoms. There are various organizations that raise funds for programs assisting those living with breast cancer and that raise funds for research in the fight against breast cancer. I would encourage you, if you are inclined and able to, please support those programs. In Canada, 1 in 8 women will develop breast cancer. So you likely do not need to go very far from your circle to find someone impacted by this deadly disease. Knowing it exists is not enough. Support those living with it, do your part to fight it, and be your own health advocate. And remember, book your mammogram. We do have an addition to the agenda, and that is item 10.1, and it is a letter that was received by Villages United, and we'll speak to that in correspondence. Is there any disclosure of pecuniary interest? Seeing none, we don't have a closed session, we don't have a public meeting, but we do have a delegation. We actually have 2, and I'm pleased to welcome our friend Renee Hornick from Aqua, who is going to update us on our second quarter reports. So Renee, welcome, and over to you.
Thank you very much. Good morning, Your Worship, members of council and municipal staff. I'll share my screen, show the report. There, you should be able to see it now. So yes, I'm reporting the second quarter of the Leuken Wastewater Treatment and Granton RBC Operations Report. Like I had done last time, I've condensed it into a 2-page document with full details down below. So I'm just going into the overview of the report, and if you have any questions, we can definitely go into it and answer anything that you have. So to start off, the purpose of these reports is just to provide the owner on the operations of the system and the quality and quantity of sewage treated for the second quarter. I've attached the reports to this information with all the operational information. One of the key things that we did in the second quarter, beginning April 1st, was we started the implementation of electronic logbooks throughout the facilities. We were expecting many benefits for this, and we have found many. The operators adapted to it very quickly. We doubled up on paper logbooks as well as electronic for the first little while, but the operators caught on so quickly. They can do their reporting on their phone, on their computer, on an iPad, on any sort of device. It's so handy to have. And some of the benefits are improved efficiency by being able to provide logbook records electronically, facilitation of virtual inspections and logbook reviews now and in the future. We have had that where we now give them to the MECP electronically, and it works so much easier than giving them our logbooks. Logbooks are a requirement of regulation 128 and 129 that we document everything by a certified operator. So that's why they're so critical to our operations. Better quality logbook entries, particularly those documenting unusual or abnormal operating conditions. Improved communications and operational oversight, as the information is available immediately after entry through both desktop and mobile applications. So I could go on my phone right now and check any documented information that's been recorded and know what's going on at any of the facilities, no matter where I am. Improved ability to proactively identify and respond to potential process and compliance issues. Again, just our process and compliance technician is able to go on and say, could you please do this? Or thanks for doing that. She knows where we stand with everything. And more consistent record keeping practices. Some other things we find is spelling errors. There's no spelling errors. And also some operators don't write the NETIS. So it's just consistent and we're able to read it clearly, and it's really helped out with our process. So that's been implemented for both Granton and the Leuken systems. The highlights for the Granton RBC. As we had the first quarter, we now have 4 non-compliances which have been identified to date in 2021. And as you can see, the monthly average totals are from March 18.4, April 14.6, May 10.5, June 17.2. We really had a hard time recovering from the repair that was done on the RBC back in March of this year. So we've had our process optimization team, which we call POTS, we're famous for our acronyms, who were on site to review the processes and determine the cause of the non-compliance related to the solids. So solids is the only issue that we do have. So some of the things that we've done is we've increased the sludge return rates. This is for sludge that settles to the bottom. Sometimes it denitrifies, and when it denitrifies, it raises to the top of the clarifiers, and then that goes out as solids. So we're working on a lot of these things. The dosage for the SACs and the PACs, which is our main chemicals for phosphorus, solids, and alkalinity. We're investigating that. We've been trying different things. One of the things with sewage is anything you try takes longer. When you're working in water, it's nice and quick. Everything in water is black and white. It's you do this, you get a result. But for sewage, it takes a bit longer. We have microbiological activity. So everything that we do takes longer to see how it's going to turn out. So we have to move slowly with all of our, all the things that we're troubleshooting. So we investigate the potential of a partial blockage of the effluent outlet pipe from the RBC to the secondary clarifier, which could be submerging the baffles. And we check the buoyancy of the bugs media. This bugs media is to float on the surface of the clarifiers and help with the denitrification of the sludge. So the raw sewage flows for 2021, as you can see, I love showing these graphs because it's such a visual to see what's actually happening. So the gray is 2020 and the blue is 2021. So as you can see, there's a huge difference, which may be related to the chemical, we're working on changing the chemical dosages slowly to see if this will help the process along. But a leak was found by our Aqua's conveyance group in the water distribution system, and this resulted in 28% decrease in the flows. That's very substantial for a system this size. So that we're working with that to see if that's one of the things that is causing the issues. And then for the alarms, we had a pump failure as a result of the Miltronics fail. So the Miltronics failed, and then the pump failed to start because it didn't recognize that it needed to start. This has since been replaced. On to the highlights for the Lucan wastewater treatment plant. You can see the raw sewage flows are pretty consistent. And then there was 2 alarms related to hydro failures, which resulted in call-ins. It's pretty typical. It was spring weather, so we do have lots of storms that cause hydro failures. And then the last MECP inspection was February 8th of 2026. So that's it for reporting for the Lucan and Granton systems. If anybody has any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Great. Thank you so much, Renee. And at this time, I will ask council if they've got any questions or comments that they want to ask Renee. Councillor Reagan.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just two quick questions. I'm just a little concerned about the leak and just how that happened. It was 28%. That's very substantial. And that I imagine that's been fixed and what's been done to fix it. And the second question I have, and I'll just ask, is when we have power failures, is there any thought to having any kind of backup system, electrical system to keep the system flowing?
Okay, those are very good questions. So to your first question, yes, the leak was repaired. And it was one of those odd things that they couldn't find where the leak was coming from, which is why our conveyance group came in to do leak detection on the system and find it. And it was just very odd as well that it was going into our sewage system. So that's one of those abnormal situations that you just can't expect to happen. And but it was caught and it's been resolved. And for your second question, I'm sorry, now I forget what it was. Oh, yes. So hydro outages. Yes, sorry about that. So for the hydro failures, yes, we do have generators that come on when there's a hydro failure. The problem is there is some of the equipment needs to be manually restarted because, for example, the alum pumps, which control the phosphorus and to a certain extent, the solids in the system, that has to be manually restarted. We have pumps that manually have to be restarted or make sure that they do start. Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. So yes, hydro failures, the generators do come on and control the main components of the system, but there are a few little touches that an operator has to check on to make sure that everything's running perfectly.
Thank you very much, Renee. Thank you very much, Madam Mayor.
Okay. Any other questions or comments? Councillor Hodgins and then Councillor Westman.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. My question is just related to the last MECP inspection being in 2016. That's quite a while ago, 5 years ago. Is that driven by the ministry, or is there an inspection scheduled for the near future, or how often does that typically happen?
Well, there is no, it's unlike water, which is typically annually, there is no set guidelines for sewage inspections. So if we were a hot spot, if we had issues, then they may consider inspecting us. But it is typical to have inspections every 3 to 5 years. So I would say we're coming up to an inspection. Nothing has been scheduled to date.
Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Westman.
Hi there. Yeah, so my personal pet peeve is fats, oils, and grease. I was just wondering what you were seeing with that particular problem in Granton or in Leuken. Are we doing better? I guess there was some issues there last year in Granton. So I'm just wondering how we're doing with fats, oils, and grease.
I agree. That's one of my pet peeves as well. That and what they flush down the drains. Yes, so for Lucan, it has never been an issue. It's a larger facility, so it's able to take more fog, fats, oils, and grease. As for Granton, it being such a small system, we do struggle with the fats, oils, and grease. We do add a chemical that helps. It's microorganisms that help to eat the fats, oils, and grease. And we have had good success with that most of the time. Sometimes it acts up and we may have more fats, oils, and grease than normal. But yeah, we are trying to control that. And I agree, that is one of our problems for our system, and it doesn't help.
Follow up, Alex?
Yeah, so I hold a seat on the Upper Thames River Conservation Authority, and they do a water festival every year. And one of their presentation programs is aptly called Your Toilet is Not a Garbage Can. And I'm wondering if maybe that would be something we could do as a community to put out. I can probably get a copy of a video or some information that we can put out to the community to remind people that there's only natural stuff like toilet paper, urine, and feces go down the toilet. Nothing else goes down the toilet. You know, I've been to the waste treatment plants and seen some of the stuff that comes out, And some of it's explainable, kids throw something down the toilet or what have you, but there's right after COVID started, people were flushing the Lysol wipes and things like that. And that, I know that can cause a lot of damage to pumps and to systems. So I'm wondering if we could do a little education program. That might be a good idea.
Absolutely. I agree. And COVID really did hit the sewage pump stations hard, and we did have a lot of issues. It's getting better. We're even finding gloves and, like you said, Lysol wipes. It could be diapers, clothing. Like, it's amazing the things that we find in our pumps, stuck in our pumps. Very frustrating at times. But as for an education, we do have a program called One Water. COVID really held us back from presenting it, and I absolutely love this program. This program is set to be presented to the grade 8 students. Grade 8 students are like sponges. They bring everything back to their parents and talk about things, and it's a great group to give this information to. It's called One Water, and it's I Don't Flush, and it talks about sewage systems and water systems and how you affect your system. So I'm looking forward to it, and I have a feeling that we may have to go virtual for something like this. We've been holding off, hoping we could get back into the classrooms. I'm not sure when that'll happen. So we may have to just go virtual. And if that's the case, then that's what we'll do. And as for the Upper Thames Conservation, yes, we were working with them as well. And we had a couple presentations within that. I think it got canceled, the last one. Yeah, so I believe they're planning on proceeding with the one coming soon, or maybe it's in the spring. I can't remember. Yeah. So yeah, so either way, public knowledge is the most powerful thing, and we need to let the public know. Jeff and Julie have been working with whoever uploads information onto your public media, Facebook page, and giving I Don't Flush ideas, and I've sent pictures in, and they put them on Facebook and things like that. So, but yeah, knowledge is powerful, so we need to get it out there. I agree.
Yeah, I was going to mention that Lisa has worked with Jeff and Julie to make sure that it's a reoccurring message in our newsletters, and then every so often there's a focus on social media. So I know she'll continue to do that. And I would agree that the program that is run by Upper Thames, that water day, that's a great day. And as Renee said, you've got the perfect market right there. Those kids, they're sponges, they take that information home, and hopefully it makes some sense. Any other questions or comments for Renee? I might just have one, and it'll likely show up at the third quarter report that you've got that will come to us. But I just wondered, 2 weeks ago we went through that heavy rain, and I think that there might have been a little bit of an issue at the Granton plant. But I just wondered, how did it affect the facility and the operations? And just in a nutshell, because I know that will come out in the third quarter.
Absolutely. So as you can see, for the average daily flows for January here, we're going to see another jump like this for September when the third quarter comes out, because those flows were quite substantial. It'll affect the Leuken and the Granton plant. The Granton pump station could not keep up, and we had to get sucker trucks in, vac trucks that take the sewage and bring it to the Lucan plant, because yes, we had a difficult time keeping up, and it was backing up the system. The operators did an amazing job. The vac trucks were in, they did an amazing job, and we were able to get the collection system down quite quickly. It was even for Lucan, the flows were really high. It was filling the lagoon, so that creates a lot of more operational setbacks for us, especially for Granton with all the issues we've been having. But the operators are working on it, and they're doing a pretty good job trying to keep up with everything.
Great, thank you for that. All right, one last call for comments. Okay, seeing none, thank you very much, Renee. We appreciate, always like seeing you, and we won't see you before Thanksgiving. Have a good holiday, and thanks for joining us this morning.
You as well. Thank you very much. Have a good day.
Okay, thanks. I just have a motion. I should have done it while Renee was on, that we receive the Lucan and Granton second quarter operational reports from Aqua as information. If I can get a mover and a seconder for that, please. Councillor Westman and Councillor Hodgins, all opposed, and that's carried. Okay, we do have another delegation, and I'm pleased to welcome Patty Kemp from the Municipalities for Climate Change. And she's going to present to us a presentation on the climate crisis. So welcome, Patty. It's great to have you with us, and I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I'm just going to share my screen now. So hopefully I have so stop the screen sharing. Yes, so I'm just going to take control here, and once I've got my screen up, hopefully you'll all be able to see what I'm doing. There. Can you all see my starting slide?
Yes.
Excellent. Well, thank you very much for inviting me to speak today. I very much appreciate it. I'll just get started, and you can follow along. So who am I? Thank you to your mayor for my introduction. My name is Patty Kemp. I'm a lawyer qualified in both England and Ontario. I'm an entrepreneur and a musician and a mother. I grew up just outside of Thorndale, which is not far from you in Middlesex County, next door to my grandparents' farm. And after working and living around the world and across Canada, I returned home with my British husband, and I live just down the road now from where I grew up. I'm also a volunteer climate reality leader. I was virtually trained last summer by former US Vice President Al Gore. So why am I worried about climate change? Well, this is my dad and my daughter. My dad learned to skate and play hockey on the pond at his farm just outside of Thorndale. Actually, he played in Leuken for a while. I learned to skate and play hockey on the same pond, and my daughter loves to skate and play hockey on their pond and on our own. And I think skating outside is part of our Canadian heritage. I want her to grow up knowing the joy of skating outside in the winter. But every year, our winter here in southwestern Ontario is getting shorter and shorter, and there are less days that the pond is frozen for skating. So I see that change in my immediate environment, and it really upsets me. And there's change happening all over the world. This is the famous blue marble image. It shows our Earth from space, and it reminds us that we all share the same home. And after all the debate about the climate crisis, there's really only three questions remaining. Must we change? Can we change? And will we change? We're going to take them one by one. So the first question is, must we change? Yes, because we're using this thin shell of atmosphere surrounding our planet as an open sewer, and we're spewing all the man-made global warming pollution into it. And I'm going to give you the basic science of global warming, and you might already know this. We're going to cover it quickly. The energy from the sun comes into the earth in the form of light radiation. And then after the earth absorbs this energy, some of the heat energy in the form of infrared radiation is radiated back to space. And because of the natural layer of greenhouse gases, some of it's trapped in the atmosphere. That's a very good thing, because that's what's kept the temperatures here on Earth within tolerable boundaries. It's given rise to the flourishing of all the different life forms here on Earth. But here's the problem. We are thickening this natural greenhouse gas layer. And as it gets thicker, more of the outgoing infrared is trapped. That's global warming. That's the climate crisis. And that's the essential cause of all the problems that we're having to deal with now. So why is it getting thicker? It's getting thicker because we're spewing 152 million tons of man-made global warming pollution into it every day, treating it like an open sewer. And there's many sources of man-made global warming pollution: agricultural practices, forest burning, transportation, and many others. But the main source and cause of the rise in global temperatures that we're seeing today is the burning of fossil fuels, as you can see on the pie chart. And since World War II, that's been going up dramatically. We're going to look at CO2, carbon dioxide, in the historical perspective. This graph goes back 800,000 years and shows each of the ice ages throughout time. Carbon dioxide and temperature go up and down together. Throughout the historical record, the concentration of carbon dioxide has never gone above 300 parts per million. Here's where we are now. In 2013, we crossed 400 parts per million. In June of this year, we crossed 417 parts per million, which is 50% higher than at the start of the Industrial Revolution in the 18th century. It's the first time it's been at that level in at least 3 million years, more likely, more than 20 million. And in the next 40 years, unless we make some dramatic changes, this is where the concentration of carbon dioxide will be. 19 of the 20 hottest years ever measured have been since 2002, and 7 of the hottest of all have been the last 7 years. And you'll no doubt remember the temperatures out in BC this past summer. Now, on a global basis, more than 90% of all the extra heat energy trapped by our atmosphere is going into the oceans. This graph shows the increase in the ocean's heat content at different depths and how it is increasing at all depths. This heat makes ocean-based storms like hurricanes, typhoons, and cyclones stronger and more destructive. Half of the increase in global ocean heat content has occurred in less than 20 years. And the extra heat disrupts the water cycle. So the amount of water vapor that evaporates off the oceans increases as the oceans warm. That water vapor is carried over the land and often falls in much bigger precipitation events. When the land can't absorb all the water that falls in these larger storms and downpours, we see floods and mudslides. So this is a picture of Montreal in May 2019. But recently, we've seen many examples of extreme flooding around the globe in Belgium and Germany and China. But just 2 weeks ago, we had a state of emergency declared right here in Middlesex County for flooding. Globally, floods and extreme rainfall events are happening 4 times more frequently than they were just 40 years ago. And in 2019, we saw these downpours in the upper Midwest of the United States lead to a situation where 20 million acres of prime farmland couldn't be planted. We'll talk more about agriculture in a bit, but this could easily happen here. And infrastructure is also damaged by these climate-related events. The costs begin to add up, especially for municipalities. In the last decade, we lost $2.5 trillion for climate-related extreme weather disasters. That's an increase over the previous decade of almost $1 trillion. And the projections are that this is going to continue to get worse. And here you can see that in Canada, the years with the highest insured losses occur due to natural disasters. The Department of Defense in the US has long warned about refugee crises connected with the climate crisis, but also pandemic diseases, water shortages, and food shortages. And back to agriculture. Heat stress is now beginning to decrease crop yields from rice, corn, and soybeans, and exposure to higher levels of carbon dioxide also decreases the nutrient content of staple crops, including wheat and soy. And the CO2 itself actually gives an advantage to some of the pests and actually diminishes the plant's abilities to defend itself. In this case, Japanese beetles that fed on the leaves of plants grown in higher CO2 atmospheres live longer and lay more eggs. And the plant's natural defense mechanisms were hampered by the CO2 levels going up. Several new diseases and some previously under control are coming back. There are many causes, but climate change exacerbates the problem. In areas with more moisture, diseases spread more rapidly. Climate change allows the mosquitoes that carry West Nile to broaden their range and make them more abundant. Warm conditions have been shown to instigate outbreaks. Mosquitoes carrying the West Nile virus were found last fall in the Sifton Bog and in traps in Glencoe this past August. And in Canada, the expansion of ticks with increasing temperature is apparent from this graph. As temperature increases, ticks are able to move farther and farther north. And as you know, ticks can carry Lyme disease. And now let's talk about trees. Deforestation is an important issue worldwide. As shrinking forest cover reduces biodiversity, affects soil and water quality, impacts wildlife habitats, and influences climate change. And this shows the countries losing the most tree cover in thousands of acres per year. And as you can see, Canada loses a lot of tree cover per year, despite having strict deforestation laws. Tree cover can be lost for a number of reasons. Deforestation for lumber and agriculture and forest fires are easy examples, but also in Canada, development is a reason that hits close to home. So climate change, land degradation, and the loss of biodiversity go hand in hand. Undisturbed natural areas like wetlands and forests sequester carbon, drawing it out of the atmosphere and storing it. These areas also provide species habitat. In a recent study, the Nature Conservancy Canada identified the Lake Erie lowlands, which is where we live, as a crisis ecoregion. Although we have a high number of species, many of these species are at risk, and very few natural areas remain, with few large intact blocks of natural habitat. The region sees land conversion resulting from both urban expansion and the trend towards agricultural intensification, with the decline of wildlife habitat and decreased pasture lands and forests. And wetland loss in Canada is another area of concern. Wetlands regulate, capture, and store greenhouse gases. And when they're destroyed, they release huge amounts of carbon dioxide. You can see from this graph that southwestern Ontario has already lost 72% of its wetlands. So when you add up all the costs, and we haven't even talked about forest fires, which are obviously of great concern out in other areas of Canada, or ocean acidification, or some of these others, I'll add one more. It's the #1 threat to the global economy. And it's the 4th year in a row that it's been designated as such. So often you hear the argument that Canada doesn't need to reduce its emissions because it isn't a big polluter, or because of our size, what we do won't matter. Well, Canada is one of the world's top 10 emitters. The average Canadian emits 3 times the global average. And at most, our forests, wetlands, grasslands, and crops only absorb about 30% of our greenhouse gas emissions. But also, our example can help spur the collective action required to help tackle climate change. And we can be the leaders. So do we have to change? Yes, we do. What about the second question? Can we change? Luckily, the answer to that question is yes, too, because we already have the solutions at hand. 21 years ago, the best projections for wind energy were that we might be able to reach 30 gigawatts by 2010. And actually, we've exceeded that by a factor of 24 times over. We see an exponential curve when we look at the amount of wind energy being built around the world. However, globally, wind could supply worldwide electricity consumption 40 times over. The story is even more dramatic, though, with solar energy, where the best projections 19 years ago were that by the year 2010, we might be able to get 1 gigawatt per year. But actually, when 2010 rolled around, we exceeded that by 17 times over. And last year, we exceeded that mark by 132 times over. And this exponential curve is rising even steeper than the one for wind, and it's even steeper and rising even faster. And that's because the cost of renewable energy continues to come down dramatically. And we're not going to run out of it, because we get as much energy from the sun in 1 hour that would supply all the electricity the world needs for a full year. And in transportation, we're seeing the beginnings of a massive shift to electric vehicles. That's really good news for manufacturing here in Ontario. And buildings are another area of increasing energy efficiency. There's a huge incentive to reduce the expensive energy bills of existing buildings. The answer is to retrofit them. And when the energy bills go down, it's a win-win-win proposition, because you create the jobs, you reduce the pollution, and you reduce the cost of operating the building. It's $1 trillion new industry. It's a really big job creator. And you know, the jobs that are created in retrofitting buildings are by definition jobs that can't be outsourced. This is the kind of job creation initiative the world's going to need post-pandemic. And let's talk about trees again. The World Economic Forum in January 2020 helped to coordinate a 1 trillion tree initiative. It's not enough, but as Al Gore says, the most effective way of pulling carbon out of the atmosphere is a tree. And to scale, it's called a forest. So, yes, We can change. The final question, though, it's the most important one. Will we change? Companies are now pledging to go 100% renewable energy. Here's some of the giant companies around the world who've made that pledge. And we're seeing in the marketplace, business and investment professionals are noticing that the fossil fuel companies are no longer good investments. Here's the stock market going up. But here's the energy sector, the fossil fuel sector. They're bad investments now, and that word is getting out. And the Paris Agreement in 2015 signed up every single nation in the world to a commitment to get to net zero by mid-century. And the US, thanks to President Joe Biden, has now re-entered the Paris Agreement. But climate action isn't just about what countries do. We all have to take the lead on climate. And we're seeing corporations, states and provinces and cities commit to reducing emissions. Both China and India are on track to overachieve their Paris commitments, so that's good news. But this is a graph of greenhouse gas emissions in Canada in megatons per year, with estimations of future emissions scenarios. And as you can see from the graph, Canada is not projected to meet the target of the Paris Climate Agreement, and we've woefully failed to meet any previous targets as well. So although Canada has missed all of our targets, I think there's still room for hope. This quote is from Paul Hawkins, the editor of Drawdown. If you haven't heard of Project Drawdown, it's a fantastic resource for ideas about reducing emissions. Here he's talking about how we need to have a conversation filled with hope, with possibility and opportunity, not repetitive emphasis on our undoing, because there's still time to change course. But that change doesn't just come from individual action. Paul Hawkins says that individuals themselves can't be expected to stop the Indonesian rainforest from being torched. But we can affect change when we work together, and we can affect change when our governing structures act. Action at the country level is great, but municipalities are key in the fight against climate change. Municipalities have jurisdiction over land use planning, waste management, building bylaws, all fundamental areas in the fight against climate change. Here's an excellent example on the municipal level. This is the Coldstream Net Zero Fire Hall in neighboring Middlesex Centre. The fire hall is one of Canada's only net zero fire halls. Last year, the fire station generated more energy than it used, with extra energy sent to the neighboring municipal office and back to the electrical grid. When I spoke to Scott Mares, their Director of Community Services, he told me that when the fire hall was first proposed, he actually wasn't sure about net zero buildings. But now, he wouldn't build a building any other way. Now, there's many ways that small rural municipalities can have an impact on mitigating climate change. As a rural municipality, Lucan Biddulph can have a tremendous impact on land use and direct carbon sequestration. Brian Gilvasey, the CEO of Alice Canada, says that in Southern Ontario, we're losing our natural capital faster than anywhere else. You can ensure you have a robust tree protection bylaw that's enforced and that trees and bush aren't cut in areas slated for development. As a municipality, you can join the 1 trillion tree challenge. You can facilitate more tree planting projects on underused or available land. And there's other things you can do when you're located in a rural area. You can plant meadows or tall grass prairie areas, which also draw carbon out of the atmosphere and store it in the ground. You can restore wetlands. Thames Centre actually just passed a bylaw to add more seed species into the mix that they plant after doing road work in the ditches. And that will increase biodiversity and carbon sequestration. Also, agricultural land use has tremendous potential to draw down and sequester carbon, and farmers, a large part of your community, play an essential role in working towards climate solutions by using beneficial agricultural techniques. So as a municipality, you can encourage landowners to employ beneficial practices like planting winter cover crops or using no-till. I couldn't find if you declared a climate emergency, but you could declare one, which is one way to ensure that all decisions made in the municipality take climate change and emission reductions into account. You can seek even more emissions reductions by setting bold targets and seeing if you can join those municipalities who are aiming to reach net zero emissions. You can think about municipal projects that reduce emissions and increase green energy use. Green your fleet with more electric vehicles. Install solar canopies, solar panels on your municipalities or solar canopies over your parking lots. Establish a program to retrofit municipal buildings, which, as we just saw, is also an excellent way to create local jobs and pandemic economic recovery. And it'll reduce the long-term costs of heating and cooling systems and electricity use. Encourage businesses and commercial buildings within Lucan Biddulph to do the same. And I would also urge you to participate in the National Climate League, which is a group of municipalities that share meaningful indicators about local progress on climate change. The information provided by the municipality would be entered into the National Climate League standings by the Climate Reality Project Canada. And then you can see how Lucan Biddulph is doing compared to other municipalities across Canada. That's something that I can help facilitate. So it's a really exciting time to do something. I love this quote. You are lucky to be alive at a time when you can make a transformative difference to the future of the whole life on Earth. The thing is, we need to act quickly because, as Bill McGibbon says, winning slowly is the same as losing. So why is it important to do something? For me, I want my daughter to inherit a world that's a joyous place to live in, where we did something to tackle the climate crisis and we won. I want her to grow up skating on the pond. When she grows up, I want her to remember skating on it with my dad. And I want her to skate on it with her kids and with their kids. I want us to take brave, decisive action like our world depends on it, because our world does depend on it. So remember, municipalities play an essential role in making the transition to a low carbon, renewable energy future. I'd encourage you again to join this National Climate League, and I'm happy to give this presentation to anyone else, both within the municipality or whoever else you think might be interested. Thank you very much for your time. I know that you have more of your council meeting ahead. So if there isn't time for questions, I'm also happy to reply to questions by email. I'm going to stop my screen share right now. Thank you.
Okay, well, thank you very much, Patty, for that educational, informative, and enlightening presentation. I'm sure that we've all walked away with more knowledge and more, probably more questions than we started off the morning with. Are there any questions or comments for Patty at this time? Councillor Westman.
Through you, Madam Mayor. Hello, Patty. I'm Alex. I have the honor of sitting on both the Sauble Bayfield Conservation Authority and the Upper Thames River Conservation Authority boards. So, you know, this is information that we as a conservation authorities are very concerned about. It's kind of unfortunate that we've seen some changes from our province and from the federal government on tree planting and even changes to the Conservation Act. So, you know, we struggle to maintain some of our programs, and we struggle to keep these initiatives on the go. Now, some of what you were saying there is we do have some very active programs in with working with farming families and farming companies to use land that isn't necessarily conducive for crop production, for restoring it to natural habitat for pollinators and adding, you know, the Carolinian and oak savanna species of trees back into the environment. So any support that we can get across the board from province or from the federal government would be great. So what we're looking for as the conservation authorities is, you know, we work with our member municipalities. We work with the various provincial and federal agencies that we have connections with to do that work. But it's a big monumental task. So thank you for the work that you do. I appreciate it very much.
I know that the conservation authorities, actually your test plot is just right near where we live for the with the new beneficial agricultural practices, which I think is going to be fantastic to show what actually happens when you use those techniques. So thank you.
Any other questions or comments for Patty at this time? Okay, so we have just a motion to accept the presentation by Patty Kemp for information. If I can get a mover and a seconder for that. Councillor Westman and Deputy Mayor Manders, all opposed, and that's carried. All right, thank you very much for joining us, Patty, and we look forward to further discussions.
Thank you very much.
Okay, moving on in through the agenda. The next item is the adoption of the minutes. Due to a technical glitch, the minutes weren't attached to our agenda. So Tina will bring those back at our next meeting. So they'll be attached in the next package and we can review them then. Business arising from the minutes. I believe there's a couple of items on the list that we'll be talking about later. Other than that, we can address the list at our next meeting. Into correspondence, there is a list in front of you, and there's two items that have been highlighted. One is the one that was added to the agenda, and it's a request from Villages United. And I know that Ron has been speaking to the organizers, and he can give a little bit of background to the request.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The request is from, like the Mayor said, Villages United Church in Granton. They have requested permission to use King Street and Queen Street for a walking parade for the children during the, I believe it's November or October 30th, a Saturday. So what they would like is permission to use the roadway for the children in their costumes to basically, I believe they're starting at the north end of King Street. They'll come south on King Street to Fallon Drive. They'll use the sidewalk across Fallon Drive, across the main street in front of the fire hall, and then use the roadway from Queen Street north and end at the park. And that is their request. Jeff Little and I did speak to John Herbert, who's sort of our go-between with regards to this project. And we had asked the question, could they not use the sidewalks instead of the roadway? And he basically said that, you know, the number of kids, they're hard to control. There's going to be people on both sides. So for that reason, they really would like council's consideration for the road to be closed during that time. We don't expect it to be a long period of time. Those two roads are local subdivision roads, which do not typically see a lot of traffic. If there's any traffic on there, it's the local people there, and obviously those are the people that this event is aimed at. So we're not expecting any issues. Jeff, I don't know whether you wanted to add anything about the barricades. We're not looking at any public works members' time. I believe the public works staff will drop off the barricades on Friday before the end of the day, and they'll just collect them again on the Monday. Jeff, I believe that's the process there.
Yeah, and through the mayor. Yeah, I mean, it'll be such a short period of time, but we thought we would provide the barricades just to assist, because they will have people, you know, providing safety measures for the kids that will be on the street. But we thought by providing the barricades, it provides that official security there, and it won't be installed by municipality staff at the time. It'll just be dropped off and for use like we have in the past.
So at the end of the day, the request is from Lucan United, or the Villages United Church in Granton, for the closure of King Street and that portion of Queen Street for the purposes of this event. And it's they are asking for council's permission.
Before I open up for discussion, what time are they looking at that? It's not in the letter.
I don't believe John Herbert actually told us, but I believe it's sometime in the afternoon. Jeff, do you recall him saying what time it actually is?
No, he didn't give an actual time on it, but he talked about the afternoon.
Okay. Any questions or comment, discussion on the request in front of us? Councillor Westman?
Yeah, I've been talking to John Herbert myself too, and it's a great little program. They had really good response to it in 2019. The kids had a great time. It offered them you know, a safer location, so they were at the park. They were able to participate in some games and activities and receive some little treats and things like that. And it was a good time for everybody. And I think that they're planning for the same thing this time. They've obviously got some new considerations for COVID safety and what have you, and they seem to put a lot of thought into it and a lot of energy. I did get a text message just now from John that they're looking at around 2 to 3 in the afternoon for the parade. So it won't take very long. They don't suspect it will take much more than probably 20 minutes to a half an hour for all the kids to move. They do have a lot of adult volunteers involved that are going to be helping out, and I probably will be one of them. So yeah, I think it's going to be a good thing. So a little bit of return to normality for the kids and for the moms and dads and the community. So it'll be fun to see the kids coming by in their costumes. And we used to do things like that when I was a kid. We used at the church and the Masons Hall and all that. We were very involved in making our little town feel, that much more connected. So this is a good thing, I think. So thanks.
I guess we know that we have one viewer watching. If John was able to text Alex. Ron, you've got your hand up.
Yeah, just a point of clarification. If council's in favor of this, what's required is we can bring a formal road closure bylaw. It doesn't necessarily need to go today. It could actually go on the 19th of October meeting in time, but we wanted to bring this to council tonight or today rather, so that the proper planning could take place. The 19th would be a little bit too short of a time frame. So we apologize for the late addition, but we if council wants to endorse this, it needed to be done today.
Okay, any other comments or questions? I guess my only concern is I understand that, and I don't want to sound like a Debbie Downer, because to Alex's point or Councillor Westman's point, it is a return to normality. It's not a large grouping. I am concerned with the gathering of the parents on the sidewalks and how that will be managed. Because I think we have to recognize by endorsing this, then we are endorsing, a sanctioned event. And I think we just have to recognize that the gathering of groups and large groups is still not, is still not something that we're all comfortable with. So I just want to make sure that, that Villages United would recognize, spacing the parents out, because once it has our endorsement, then I think we take on some responsibility for the event as well. So, yeah, Ron?
Madam Mayor, if I may, I think what we can do is communicate that concern to Villages United Church in the response letter, and encourage them to communicate that to the parents involved and to the children involved, that health unit protocols still exist, and we need to abide by those.
And even as the kids make their way down, I don't think we'd want to see a large cluster of children like that. But anyways, I will trust their judgment. So I guess looking to council for an endorsement of the request or denial. So I'll look to my colleagues. Deputy Mayor Manders.
I just wanted to say that you made a good point. I think the endorsement, though, in the endorsement, it should state that providing they're following the health recommendations or what the CAO said. As we know, things can evolve from today to that day, that morning. So I think the onus needs to be on them to follow the changes, and that I'm okay with that as long as our endorsement states that. So.
Any other comments or questions? And I guess I'd be looking to council for a recommendation. Councillor Westman?
Yeah, through you, Madam Mayor, I'm prepared to make a recommendation that we approve this with the Deputy Mayor's concerns and your concerns noted in the response letter. And yeah, that we go ahead, and I've communicated those concerns to John, and he understands, and they're going to do what they can to communicate that out to the people. So, all right, thank you.
And then I guess added to that motion would be that staff would bring the appropriate bylaw for road closures the next meeting. So a seconder for that, please. Deputy Mayor Manders, or did you have another comment, Dave?
Oh, sorry, I just didn't know if I first thought or seconded. I wasn't sure where we're at on that. Sorry.
Councillor Westman is moving it, and you can second it.
Sure.
Okay. Any other discussion, comment? Okay, all opposed? That's carried. Okay, then that was the only one that was pulled forward. Was there anything else that council wanted to discuss in the communications that we received since our last meeting? Okay, then, okay. No, I don't know. Paul, did you want to talk about the email that you received from the Healthy Communities Initiative? And is there anything that you see as bringing forward to the arena or Parks and Rec? Or I guess that was that was just that we were ineligible, right? If I'm reading that.
That was through you, Madam Mayor. That was for the outdoor exercise equipment grant that we had applied for. We were unsuccessful with that.
Was that the Hydra one?
Yes.
Okay. All right. So that was a while ago. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. All right. Thanks. If there isn't anything else that we want to discuss, then the motion is to receive items 10.1 through 10.2 for information. A mover and a seconder for that, please. Councillor Regan and Councillor Hodgins. All opposed? And that's carried. Moving through into committee reports. Blue Water, Deputy Mayor Manders. And he's off. I wonder if he's got a work call, so I'll circle back to him. CEDC, Lisa.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. We're looking to schedule a meeting for the end of October to go over the CIP for 2022 and some grant opportunities in the new year as well.
Okay. Thank you. Dave, did you have anything from Blue Water? No. Okay. Lake Huron, I've got a meeting on Thursday and the budget will be discussed. So I'll be reporting back on that at our next meeting. Nothing from the fire boards, ABCA and Upper Thames. Alex.
Hi there, through you, Madam Mayor. We met on the 27th for the Upper Thames River Conservation Authority. Just as same as with the Sable Bayfield, we're getting ready for budget time, and we're looking at some of the harsh realities that are coming down the pipe as far as the rising costs through inflation of insurance. That's a big one. We're feeling the same thing, I'm sure, at the municipality. Wages, benefits, and the cost of operations have all been affected by, COVID and things like that. We are implementing vaccination and testing policies in order to maintain employee safety, and that's following suit. Many of the municipalities in the area are doing the same thing, just to ensure the safety of their staff. As we all know, we had a major flood event over the last few weeks, and we don't think that's going to be the last of it. It's kind of timely that we had our presenter presenting about climate change. So there's a lot of strategy that we have to kind of employ during a flood event. And, when we have dam structures like the Wildwood Dam and Fanshawe Dam, and even at Piddock, we saw in St. Mary's a good example of what the flooding can do. The water levels going over the mill dam were absolutely outrageous. The water levels at the river flats were several feet above normal. And, we had a lot of people out working. It's one thing that a lot of people may not realize is that during major weather events like this, we have all of our staff are on high alert. They're working in coordinated efforts to try to manage floodwater as best they can. And where they can't manage it, they monitor it and do reporting out to the public and to various agencies to make sure that everybody's safe. And during a flood event like that, it's public awareness, because you may have a washout on a road. So we work with the municipalities to be able to block that road off, or we may have a fast water event going with rivers. So we put out information on, stay clear of the shores and riverbanks. Let people know that there's a danger so they don't go near it. Now, I was a little alarmed. I had gone into St. Mary's, and I could see from the bridge that there was several dozen cars were driving through deep water on the river flats, because they were, rubbernecking. They were going to have a look and see the floodwaters. So a good message there is, if there's floodwaters, just stay away. The last thing we want is someone to get into trouble and then have to bring in emergency services to rescue them, putting those people at risk. So now I did receive some calls and messages from people during the rainstorm about water in basements and things like that. I think that happens with all of us to a certain degree. One question that came to mind that really kind of alarmed me was the lady that asked, should I put my sump pump hose down the toilet? Now, it's one person, and they were just spitballing, looking for solutions. But I think it's important for our residents to realize that stormwater, like basement sump pump water, should never, ever go into the sewer, the sanitary sewers, ever. So if anyone's got a connection to the sanitary sewers from their sump pump, they need to disconnect that right away. That's not the way to manage floodwater. Put it as far away from your house foundation as you can, pointing towards wherever there's a drain or street drain, and that's where they should put their water. So anyhow, we continue to do monitoring. Rainfall is going to continue to be an ongoing problem. We are hitting record numbers this year. So, everybody should kind of double check their sump pump, make sure they have an emergency plan for, backup power or what have you to maintain their sump pump. And that's the thing to do. So that's my 2 cents.
Okay, thank you for that, Councillor Westman. Any comment or questions for Alex on that? Okay, Parks and Rec, Paul?
Nothing at the moment. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Great, thank you. Moving into staff reports, Ron.
Madam Mayor, the report included in the council package today is in regards to the fire services master plan. So we first discussed this back in the spring or late spring. So I won't go through all the existing stuff in there. We do have an identified budget of $60,000 in the 2021 budget to pay for this. Hopefully that's enough money to cover the cost of this. The waiting period was for the Township of Perth South to communicate back to us whether they would participate with us. Obviously, they are 49% owners in the Biddulph Blanchard Fire Area Board. They got back to me yesterday saying that they would prefer to do their own path forward. So we are basically on our own as far as this report goes. So again, we've got I included in the package, or I believe that was added yesterday to the agenda, the actual RFP document. It's still in draft form. I do have to get comments back from our insurer as to whether I'm missing anything as far as the insurance angle goes. There is also a possibility that we may need to have some sort of clause in there regarding proof of vaccination for any outside contractors. So those are 2 issues that I'm still finalizing. But the purpose of today's report is to basically put the draft RFP before council to get approval for the draft RFP. Did any members of council see anything in there that was missing or in error in that document? Now is the time to bring that forward to us. But yeah, at the end of the day, we are looking for approval to proceed forward with this report. Yeah, other than that, I'm available for questions if anybody has any questions.
Okay, sorry, just looking. I think we were looking, okay. Questions, I guess, at this time. I know I've got a couple of comments, but I'll open it up for questions first or comments. Deputy Mayor Manders.
Is there a timeline or a sense of urgency to proceed with this right away? Or is this something that's, I'm just thinking in light of, not that this isn't important, what your thoughts are just with the arena project and soccer fields and everything else going on within our small community. I just didn't know where this fit in and time. And
yeah, through you, Madam Mayor, to answer the question, the timeline is totally open to council. Yeah, yes, we do. I would agree. We have a lot on our plate at the present time. Can this wait? Yes, I believe it can. You might get a different answer if you talk to the fire chiefs, but at the end of the day, this is not a high priority on my list anyway. It's something that definitely needs to be done at some point. But to answer your question, does it need to be done today? Can it wait until our some of these other projects are off our list? I would say yes, it can.
Yeah, I didn't. Yeah,
again, it's up to council. It's a council decision.
Yeah, it's not provincially mandated drop dead date to be done, so that's good. And I agree with you. It's not something that I'm looking to not do. It's just is it done further out? That's all. Yeah. Okay. No, thanks.
Any other comments? I guess just jumping off that point. I mean, it is something that I really do think we do need to do, just because this master plan will, give us an outlook of the needs of the departments and how we can address those needs in the coming years. And it's something that we don't have. So I think that it's an important document that we have. And I've spoken at length about that in the past, both at the board level and at council. That being said, I do think with just finding out from Perth South that they are going to look at their own facilities on their own. I still think, given the fact that they are 49% owner in the Biddulph Blanchard department, that there needs to be some crossover between the two, and we need to kind of figure out how that works. And to the deputy mayor's point, we do have a lot on the go at this point, and I would suggest that we maybe shelve the process or shelve the project or putting it out into mid to late next year, perhaps. That would be my but I don't want to lose sight of it, because I do think that it is important, because it will provide a vision for how we go forward, as I say, the needs of the departments and how they are best managed. But I'm comfortable receiving the report for information and perhaps having staff bring it back mid next year. Any other comments? Okay, so I would just ask for a motion to receive Ron's report, CAO-15-2021 for information. Mayor Manders and Councillor Hodgins, all opposed, and that's carried. Maybe before I just let you go, because Ron, I know you've got a couple more verbals, just for anybody watching, it is a morning meeting, and Councillor Regan just had to step off for a commitment that he's got with work, but he will jump on when that is done, just so that everybody knows why he's disappeared from screen. Okay, did you want to continue on, Ron?
Yeah, actually, I just had one more item, Madam Mayor. So last Thursday was September 30th. That was the first Truth and Reconciliation Day. It's a statutory federal holiday. It was not a statutory provincial holiday. Our employees were not given the day off. I know some municipalities were, but we felt that this was more of an opportunity to educate our staff. So what we actually did was we recognized the orange, quote, orange shirt day. So everybody tried to wear their orange that day. We also had a bit of a training session at 9 o'clock where employees came into the council chambers. We actually played a video. It's called our Healing Journey, and it outlined the residential school that was on the Oneida of the Thames site, which is a close neighbor of ours within Middlesex County. So that was quite an informative video. It outlined the experiences from some of the residential school survivors, their families, and the community. So it was an opportunity for staff to become a little more educated with regards to what happened during that era and make sure that it doesn't happen again. And I think education is the start of that process. So thank you very much.
Questions for Ron at this time? Okay. I know I shared the links on my social media to the video, but if anybody watching or anybody around the Horseshoe is interested in watching that, we can make those links available. It was a great video. It was older. I would think it was maybe done in the 90s, but certainly local to us. That's for sure. Tina.
Thank you. Through you, Madam Mayor, I just wanted to mention that we will be preparing the 2022 council meeting schedule shortly. I just want to get some feedback from council as to how they liked this year's schedule with the 2 daytime meetings, or whether they prefer to go back to evenings only. Just a little bit of background for you, Jaden. We did this year implement 2 daytime meetings, one in the spring and one in the fall, just to see how that worked for staff and the public. There is a little bit of savings with meeting pay to staff by doing that. But this year was just kind of a trial to see how it worked. So I guess I'm just looking to see what everyone thinks, whether they want to go ahead with that or go back to the way we were doing it, which was twice a month, Tuesday evenings.
Councillor Westman.
Yeah, actually, I think it's a great idea, and I think we could even expand it. That's my personal opinion. Obviously, it's more convenient for me, but it also, I think, maybe is better for staff as well. Because evening meetings means they have to disrupt their evenings as well, and that's several people that have to, leave work and then come back to do the meeting, so yeah. I'd be in favor of adding more. So.
Any other comments or questions? Deputy Mayor Manders.
Yeah, for me, I'm lucky enough that I can be somewhat flexible, but it is hard when Tina asks out, that far. It's obviously a guess, because as Daniel had a work commitment come up, he wouldn't know that 6 months ago, say with myself. And I think we really need to keep in mind, people that decide to put their name in to run. And again, what we do is if we add to this and we expand it, I think we have the situation like Daniel and even myself, as I stated, that I would commit to 2 only. And then if council wanted to proceed and staff, that would be my commitment. So I think we really, if we expand that, then you're going to get into not having the working world put their name in to run for council. And it's not like we have an overabundance of people submitting their name and Lucan Biddulph to run. It is a cost savings, obviously, with staff being able to do this during the day. But I think that cost savings, when you really look at the total cost in our budget, it's not that much of a cost. And having the ability to have more people run, I feel, is more important anyways. So.
Okay. Any other comments, questions? I wonder, I think it's to keep the 2 for sure. And again, making those dates today, we don't know what it's going to look like in October of 2022 for that meeting. But I wonder if maybe we put a little bit of thought into the one of the meetings being, I guess, our typical planning meeting, and whether it's a busy one or not, I mean, we don't know at this point, but that might give us a bit of an indication on public participation and that sort of thing, because you know, this is definitely a lighter agenda meeting for us, and I think maybe the one that we hosted in May was also a bit lighter. So that would be my one request, is to maybe make one of them a planning meeting, because then there's at least the chance that there would be maybe some public participation, and we could maybe get some feedback on how that is being received by the public and also by applicants. I mean, obviously, if somebody's got an application in, I would think if they felt they need to speak to it, they would make those arrangements, but it just might give us a better idea from a public participation standpoint, if we schedule it that way. And then the other item I just wanted to bring up, and I believe that because there was a change in the Election Act over what the election period looks like. And I believe that there was also a hope that that period between the election and swearing in was shortened, so that there wasn't so much of that lame duck council period of time. And so I think we need to look at when that swearing in of council will be. And I know at the county level, all of the partner municipalities would have to have their swearing in of their councils in the same kind of window in order for the county to book their inaugural. So I would just maybe say to Tina and Ron maybe can speak to his colleagues, but to keep that in mind for when that swearing in is, because it's always been the first week in December, but we might want to shorten that up into November. And I can't remember what the wording was in the Election Act and what the exact change was, but I don't know if, Ron, you know any more about that, but just keep that in mind when we're making the schedule.
Yes, thanks, Madam Mayor. So the election next year occurs in October. So in a typical municipal election, the new council takes office, like the mayor said, the first week of December. But now that they've backed the election up into a month earlier, they want the new council to take office the first week of November. So that backs everything up. So we're going to have to adjust our dates accordingly, and we're going to have to adjust our procedural bylaw accordingly, because I believe it does say in the procedural bylaw that the new council, will be sworn in as soon as possible after December 1st. But sometimes we get into a little bit of an issue if December 1st happens to be a Thursday, because that's the first Thursday in December is when the new county council, the inaugural meeting of county council has to happen. And sometimes there's a bit of a rush to get the local council sworn in time so that the mayor is duly appointed as the member at county council. So that's all administrative type issues that we internally will deal with over the next little while. And Tina and I will bring forward any amendments that are required to carry that out. And like the mayor said, I believe the CAOs are meeting next week. So we'll talk a little bit at a high level of what that means and what that looks like. Thank you.
Okay. Anything else, Tina? No.
No, I don't. Thanks, Kathy.
Great. Okay, no building and bylaw. Catherine, anything from finance?
I do have a couple of things, but I think Dave has his hand up.
Oh, sorry. Oh, thank you. Deputy Mayor Manders?
Just sorry. Did we answer Tina's question?
I've got comments from you all, but it's
So I believe she had asked that she wants to start working on the schedule.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't think we answered that. I don't think we answered it, but I'm hoping that I don't want to expand on daytime meetings. I'd like to just have the 2. If we expand on them, I will guarantee the 2, and then council and staff on that. If you want to change that, then don't count on me for other ones. That's all. So depending on the work schedule, because the work, it's one thing at nighttime meetings, that's typically your personal stuff you can adjust, but the daytime ones are harder when it's work commitment, customer commitment. So if we're good with the 2 daytime ones, that, but anyway, I just didn't know if we answered your question.
Thank you, Dave. I'll bring it forward with the 2 meetings, and spring and fall, and maybe the fall one, as Kathy suggested, being the second meeting in the month, to see how that works for planning. And sometimes there's drain meetings, that kind of thing.
It might be worth having a more fulsome discussion again in the spring, prior to the election window opening up. If there is an appetite or a desire to change anything, then I would say, in all fairness to a new council coming in or anybody interested in running for council, that they know that before they put their name in, what sort of expectation is put upon them. So maybe we can circle back and have more of a discussion, maybe early spring before the election period opens up. Yep. Okay. All right, Catherine.
Thank you. So just a couple of verbal things. So we've been keeping busy in the treasury here. We got the water bills out last week, so they're due towards the end of next week. We're working on the letters out to send to our current dog tag owners, a record indicating the changes we made at the last meeting in regards to that. Working on the budgets, and also year end is coming, and the auditors will be here next week to do their interim audit. So lots on the go here. Time is flying. That's it. Thank you.
Great. Thank you for that. Any questions for Catherine? Okay. No planning. Public Works, Jeff.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just some updates. The master servicing plan is being completed. There were some comments to be added to it. And BM Ross is currently just updating that, and it'll come back to council quite shortly for council to accept it. Tomorrow, we have a meeting with BM Ross on the wastewater treatment plant expansion. The topic will be to discuss a stage expansion versus a single project. So there'll be more information following to council shortly after that. I think that's going to be a very important discussion tomorrow on that. Flow monitoring is starting mid-October. We've picked our locations. That'll kick in and be up and running. So that's good. In the department itself, we're about to review winter maintenance. We'll be planning for and getting ready for the 2021-22 season. Some of the discussion will be sidewalk. We obviously have some new sidewalk to clear at the corner of Saintsbury and Richmond, as well as just an overview of the whole system, or the whole process in the whole township. So we're getting that in place. And then just we are coming to the end of the flower season, so the flowers will be removed next week, so that we can start getting everything winterized and put away and properly for that. So that's kind of an overview of what's happening in the PWE, and I'll open it to questions, Madam Mayor.
Great. Thank you, Jeff. Questions or comments? Deputy Mayor Manders.
Sorry, it's not on his report, but rather than councilor comments and he's up, I'm just going to ask him something. Jeff, just stretching on what Alex was talking about there on the sump pumps and getting your water away. I'm noticing more people doing that, but putting it about 2-3 feet from our sidewalk. And then obviously it runs out and gets away from their house. is there, obviously during the winter time and fall, winter, even spring, depending on ice, it will obviously really cause issues on our sidewalks. But is that just, there's not much we can do and there's nothing really wrong with that? Or is like,
And through the mayor, that's a great question. So a lot of our lots are designed, and this is quite common with all municipalities, are designed to flow either to the road. The grades are set. So realistically, a lot of the lots are graded towards the flow towards the road, and then we hopefully have a storm sewer that then at the road system can then pick up the water and take it away. We do have the right not to allow the water to be discharged directly to the township's property. So a sub pump line that directly flows right out onto the sidewalk, we can ask them to cut it back. It is private property though, once it gets back onto private property, and so that the grades, if they do flow to the road, the homeowner does have the right to pump the water to his property and then allow the grades to take it out. You're right, it creates all sorts of problems when we have poor drainage and the water has to cross the sidewalk. We do spend extra time in the wintertime, or especially in the spring when the sub pumps are starting to work, particularly late February, March, and we have to go around and actually put extra salt in spots. We have an interesting location on Alice Street where there's a sub pump that just doesn't have anywhere else to go but towards the street, and it causes issues there. So our hands are tied a little bit that way. I would say that our newer subdivisions, we're giving each lot a storm outlet, so they can pump their sub pumps directly to the storm sewer without going out to the sidewalk. But I think you'll find our hard areas are our older sections, such as Alice and where there's not a lot of storm. There's not a lot of drainage in these places. Houses were built and there's low spots and people are trying to get rid of the water. And so when we go to look at engineering on Alice, we're looking at providing extra drainage, extra storm in the road so that we can try and eliminate some of this. And the staff, that we have on, John and Andrew will look at solutions if there is water going on sidewalks, if we can provide extra drainage or try to get the water to go under the sidewalk and make it to the road. We definitely will work with the homeowner to try and get the water to the curb. But yeah, no, it comes down to individual case, to be honest, Deputy Mayor, that we're dealing with out there. So
I think, I just thought it'll be interesting. I think in light of these high storms that we're getting and substantial rain in a short time, I think we're going to start seeing more homeowners taking their eaves troughs and sump pumps out from their property, and not maliciously, but to the sidewalks. And during those temperatures where we have the freeze, it's going to be, I think, yeah. So you answered my question. It's going to be maybe a little more work on applying the salt and that. I think we're going to be in for maybe some more issues than we have in the past. So
yeah, and like I said, if there is a real issue, like there is a couple of spots that we get buildups of anywhere from 4 to 6 inches of ice sometimes. That's where we'll flag it and see if we can assist in getting that water in a different way rather than salty, and provide extra drainage there. But it definitely is an interesting problem for all municipalities, whether it's the City of London or it's Lucan Biddulph. So is drainage onto the sidewalks.
Any other questions for Jeff at this time? Okay, thanks, Jeff. Public Works, Paul.
Thank you to you, Madam Mayor. Before council, this was on part of business arising for the last while. Obviously, without a regular ice season in the last couple of years, it's been difficult to show an example of the efficiencies for the ice plant chiller. So both Catherine and myself sat down and we went back and we've looked at some of the kilowatt hours and we've done some comparisons. When we first had the upgrade from the shell and tube chiller to the plate frame chiller, it was recommended to switch to this type as it's more efficient. There's a 50% less ammonia in the system, so it's also safer, which is a benefit there. During installation, we also noticed with our refrigeration contractors some small improvements to the plant room for its operations. These all fell within our normal operating budget, and they've also contributed to some of these efficiencies. But what the treasurer and I have done is we've looked at a 3-month period in 2019 and then a 3-month period in 2021 that coincide around general same weather patterns and same use operations, as well as we've taken 2 summer months to show those higher strain months for showing comparison. Obviously, it's never going to be perfect to show a completely perfect comparison, as many things can factor into this, such as outdoor weather, amount of people in the building, all sorts of things that are out of our control. But this is the best example we can demonstrate with an average of showing about a savings of 4,846 a month, and then we put that against a normal operating hockey season, which is an 8-month season, which can generate approximately $38,768 savings annually, which is very positive considering the ice plant chiller only costs us around $85,000 to install. So within 2.2 years, we've essentially paid for the capital investment, and with it, the normal 20-year replacement of the old chiller, this one would not actually require it. Rather, in 10 to 15 years, it instead would get a re-gasket, which it gets taken apart and new seals get put in, it gets cleaned. But with the titanium in the system, it'll last for quite a bit longer once you do that, and that should easily fall within the savings that we will save over that time period. So overall, I think this is a good news report, as it demonstrates, a wise investment by council.
Okay, thank you for that, Paul. I think we all understand that it's difficult to get exact comparables, but I think you've done a good job here in giving us a good sense of the savings from the new plant. Any questions, comments on this? Okay, if I can get a mover and a seconder to receive Paul's report PR-15-2021 for information. Councillor Hodgins and Councillor Westman, all opposed, and that's carried. Do you have anything else, Paul?
Yes, just a few verbal. I guess as well, I should note in the report, I mentioned some of the safeties that we had put in place with the ice plant, such as an outdoor beacon. We have a clear visibility into the room now, and we've brightened up the space. We've changed the lighting in the room. We've gotten great compliments from both the fire inspector and the TSSA. So, trying to keep it safe as a good workplace and a good place for liability for those occupants coming in. So it's good to hear that positive feedback. Another quick update, the ABCA, as well as some local volunteers, are going to be working with to plant some rain gardens around the Campanelli stormwater pond. If you see some activity going on there, this touches back on something that was presented earlier in council. So it's positive. We are working with them for part of their habitat stewardship program and education. So there'll be some opportunities to plant some nice plants in there that have a function. So they'll help with slowing down that flooding groundwater, as well as adding filtration to the system. So reduce the maintenance on the system and helps everything downstream. So it's positive use of some municipal recreational land. Well, it's recreational and functional land, but and it's a good opportunity for education for the public and things that they can do on their own property to help assist towards these things. So with that, everything has been going well here at the community center with the vaccine passports. Just a few things that we've had to deal with that I'm sure everyone has. The learning curve coming into this, and I think now everything's operating in a very fine, well-oiled machine, and I'm quite happy with the public and how they've been working with us to come in and still participate.
Okay, excellent. Paul, any questions for Paul at this time? Might just have one. I would agree with you. I was at the arena on Saturday for the home opener for the junior game. And that's the first time I've been in for an event, and thought it ran very smoothly. And certainly the fellow that greeted us did a great job in asking us for our proof of vaccination, and I thought that it was very smooth, and I'm glad to hear that for the most part, everybody is respectful of the protocols you've got in place. So one question I do have, and it doesn't just come from me. I did have a couple people ask me on Saturday evening, is Parks and Rec, are you going to go ahead and reintroduce the bar or the Blue Line Club, I should say, for junior games at all this year?
Thank you through you, Madam Mayor. Currently, right now, we're kind of steering away from that, as with the Section 22 order in place for food and beverage servers, where we need to have a designated table to sit and consume your beverage and food at, just because we don't have a hall overlooking it like the old Lep Hall yet. So we don't really have a good space for that. And to have people in the stands potentially walking around with their beverages, taking their masks off, it's quite discouraged by the health unit. We can maybe look with the health unit to see if there's options out there that we could facilitate in our facility to look at this. But it will be difficult right now with the masking in the Section 22.
Okay, thank you for that. All right, any other questions for Paul? Okay, economic development, Lisa.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just a quick couple little things. The RFP for the accessibility audit and the streetscape design is due October 22nd. So I'll have a report to council early November on that. As well, you'll start to see, hopefully in the next couple days, a new version of an online newsletter and council recap. So it'll be not just images, but it'll be actually more like an email version with links and that sort of thing. So that's being done this week.
Okay, any questions for Lisa? Okay, moving on to councillor comments. Deputy Mayor Manders.
Well, just to go off your question to Paul, and Paul has answered the question, but maybe if there can be any, thought of, talking to the health unit to see if it is possible to section off an area. So I was talking to somebody, and I don't know if it's because everyone's been not doing much and socializing because of COVID, but they said the Stratford Blue Line Club over last weekend either made or brought in $5,000, and it was like a record amount of people. People. It was properly set up and done. They probably have something overlooking the. They do have something, I believe, overlooking the arena, the ice pad. But even if it's a case of if it's possible that even an intermission to be able to go and have a drink and again, it's it is about hockey, but also it's about our community socializing too, I think. And if we can, if they can, if they're having a drink, socializing, coming back out safely, to the ice pad when the periods start, I mean, it might be an option too, potentially to consider. But anyways, I just thought Paul's answered the question, but I do hope you'll look into it. So.
Okay, thanks for those comments. Paul.
Thank you, through Madam Mayor. I do apologize. There was one thing I had to add to council as well. If you can, all the councilors, make sure to check your inbox, and please, you may have received an email from Abby regarding some info for the upcoming community guide. If you could please get back to her as soon as you can. We're anxiously working on that to try and get it all put together for the editors.
Okay, thank you. Okay, any other councillor comments? Okay, there's no changes to budget. Any notices of motion? So now we'll go into motions, and we don't have any, so it's just bylaws, and we have two in front of us this morning, and that's bylaw 64-2021, the transfer payment agreement for the ICIP funding, and bylaw 65-2021, the confirming bylaw for today, October 5th. And so the motion in front of us is that if no one cares to speak to bylaws 64-2021 and 65-2021 on their first, second, and third reading, that they be considered to have been read a first time and passed, read a second time and passed, and read a third time and passed. Can I get a mover and a seconder for that, please? Councillor Westman and Councillor Hodgins, all opposed, and that's carried. And resolved that the council meeting be adjourned at 10:43 a.m. Mover and a seconder, please. Deputy Mayor Manders and Councillor Westman. All opposed? That's carried.